How to read your poems aloud to enchant your listeners. This is a video where you're going to learn how best to practice and read your poems in front of an audience. And when you're reading in front of an audience, to ensure they are most engaged with what it is that you are saying. But first, if you're new here, my name is Nathan Hassall. I am the current Poet Laureate of Malibu, California. And this is a channel where you learn about poems, poets, and poetry to become a stronger writer, to be more engaged with the art, and to enjoy live performances as well. So if you haven't already, please click the subscribe button so that you never miss a video. In this video, we're going to discuss the best preparations you can make before you read your poem or poems to a crowd, what you are actually going to do on the day that you're reading your poems in front of people, and a little bit about the after. You're going to want to stay to the end because all of the things that you're going to learn in this video are going to improve your poetry performance tenfold. So stick around and enjoy. First, I want you to imagine a harpist who has written sheet music but never practiced it. And the harpist gets up on stage, puts the sheet music in front of her, and decides, now I'm going to play the music for the first time in front of an audience. How do you think that's going to go? To me, it's probably not going to go that well. I mean, you can have an unbelievably talented harpist that could master it the first time, but often mastery comes from practice. Practice. By all means, the harpist may have written the music, but the harpist will want to practice the music, one, to get more used to the music that she's playing, but also to understand it to a deeper level and see what works and doesn't work about what's gone from brain to paper that hasn't yet been turned into music. So I want you to think about that in a similar way when you're coming to poetry. If you have written a poem and you don't practice it and you stand up in front of people and read it for the first time, you're more likely to stumble, you're less likely to be convincing, you're not going to know it as well, so you might be more stilted or quiet or nervous. So how best can you practice? The first step, which is probably quite obvious, unless you're going to get up and freestyle, is to write and edit your poem. Now, when you're editing your poem, reading it aloud is a great practice to see where the poem is working and where it isn't. So you're already going to be starting to practice knowing the poem better by reading it aloud through the editing process. But let's say you've done all that and you're ready to start practicing the poem itself. So what are the steps that you can take to make yourself more familiar with your poem and to read it better? My first advice is when you're reading it aloud, there's three things. And I always say this to people. I say it from fifth graders to adults, no matter who I'm talking to. The principles are slow, loud, clear. Now for slow, of course, your poem can be dynamic. So if there are moments where you want to speed up, that's absolutely fine. You should speed up with the rhythm of the poem. However, slowness means allowing there to be silence between the words, allowing time for the audience to engage their imaginations as they're listening to what it is that you are saying. If I was doing this video now and I'm speaking to you like this, and this is the next thing you need to do, it starts to get a bit stressful and it's harder to follow. So it's important to speak slower. Loud. Again, this is another thing. By loud, I don't mean you need to scream so that everyone can hear how much you're declaring your poem at them. I mean loud enough that you are enunciating so that the people at the front and the back of the room can hear you clearly, which is the last one, is clear. How can you pronounce your words as clearly as possible when you're reading? Certain words have sounds that allow us to experience them better if we speak them clearer. One word I like using as an example is the word tentative. Tentative is like a drum beat. It goes t. So if I say it too unclearly, if I just go tentative, that doesn't give the power of the word than if I said tentative. You hear it more, it's more resonant. So think about those three things: slow, loud, and clear as you're reading your poem aloud to yourself. When you are practicing your poem, you can read it to yourself, you can read it at a mirror, you can read it to a close loved one and ask for feedback. One thing that I think is really great to do is to read it and record it. You can either make a video of it or you can make a voice recording of it. Now, the advantages of this, I know when you first hear back your voice or see your video, I get this all the time. You can really cringe and you can get in your own head of, this whole thing sucks, this is bad, whatever. That voice you need to move through and move past, because when you actually get to listen to it more, you'll see where it is that your energy lies, where it is that you can improve, where it is that you can be slower, louder, clearer, and where in your poem you might want to change little bits as you're moving through it. I will say, when you're reading it to someone and you want feedback, make sure that you're doing that with enough time before you have the event that you're reading at. It's probably not best to read it to someone 5 minutes before you need to leave and you get their feedback and all it does is stress you out, and it's not something that you have time to integrate. So you want to do that more in advance so that if they give you feedback, you can work with it, work on your poem, and then bring it to the event or the open mic that you're going to. So I will say, the better you know your poem, the more comfortable you're going to feel. We're going to get to a bit more of that when we get to the performance day itself. The last thing I'll say is bring either a written out version of your poem that is clear, or print it. Of course, you can read off a phone or a tablet. That's perfectly okay if that's all you've got, but I personally and other people can find it quite distracting. I find using my phone to read off a last resort. Plus, you don't want things happening like getting a notification or something that's going to distract you while you're reading. So I always think it's best to have it on paper. Again, that's an individual choice and that's my opinion on it. So do what you like with that. And the last advantage, if you memorize it, you can have the paper down there in front of you in case you need a cue, but you can give eye contact to the people around in the room. If you know it at least well, you might want to look down at the paper, but then you can look back up and say it. There's going to be parts of your poem you're going to remember. Otherwise, you might be too much like this. And see how less engaged you are if I'm doing that? Then when I'm looking directly, I know it's through a camera, but looking directly at you, you're more receptive to what it is I'm saying, because it feels like I'm more engaged with you because I am more engaged with what I'm saying to you. On the day of the event, first thing, obviously you already want to have your poem printed out. Best the day before, but if you do it on the day and you have plenty of time, fine. Get there early. I don't mean 1 minute early, I mean 5 or 10 minutes early. There might be traffic, there could be anything going on, that if you turn up to a reading and you are late, someone is already reading and you walk in while they're reading, that can be distracting to everyone in the room and can be disrespectful to the person reading. Now, I understand that sometimes we are just late and there are things outside of our control, and totally forgiving when people come to my events late. It happens, I've been late before, but do your best not to. If you can help it, do not be late. Get there early, or at the very least on time, but aim for early. And while you're there, you want to listen to others that are reading at the event before and after you. You are not just there to perform your poem. You are there to participate by listening, by engaging, and by sharing your poem. And everyone else there is doing the same thing. They are participating through listening first. You want to take in what other poets are doing. You're going to want to engage with what they're saying. You're going to want to show respect, but also enjoy what it is that they are doing. So that also means if you have your poem on paper, don't have it face up while someone else is reading in front of you, because you might be distracted by looking down and reading yours and worrying about what yours is going to sound like. And then you're not there for them. Everyone that's at the event needs to be there for each other. Which brings me to my next point. Now, let's say you're at the open mic and someone calls you up and it's your turn to read. You might feel a pang of nerves. There might be part of you that says, I don't want to do this. All of those feelings are completely normal. I don't know anyone that doesn't feel any nerves. I know there might be varying degrees of it, but it's okay to feel nervous. But remember, you have practiced, so you know this better than you would have if you haven't. So when you get up to the stage, if it's a microphone, make sure the microphone is at a good height for you, that you're not slumped over, looking down, as I used to be when I started doing this, that you're able to stand or sit up as tall as possible, open your body language, and be inviting to everyone. Remember, poetry is an opening to each other. We are opening gates. If our body language is open, then people will be more receptive to us and we will be more receptive to them. So you've either got the microphone or you're standing there without one. Wait a second and take a breath. Okay. Silence is okay. People can anticipate silence and you can live through silence. I know when you're standing up there, seconds of silence, every second feels like 5 minutes, but it's okay. And it can build tension. Tension's good in a room for poetry. Before you start, you might want to give yourself a brief introduction. You can just say what your name is and what your poem is called. This is under 10 seconds. This is good. If you want to give a brief description about your poem, if you're just reading one, that's fine as well. Again, keep these short. There's no need to spend 5 minutes explaining what your haiku is about to then read a 3-line haiku, which should be able to explain itself. However, some brief contextualization is absolutely okay. And if you're reading many poems, you might want some patter in the middle to build up rapport with the audience. Another thing, if you're at an open mic or any reading, follow the rules. All open mics have their own rules. They should be stated quite clearly. Some have time limits. Maybe you have 5 minutes to read. Maybe you have 20 minutes to read as a feature. Stick to this time. If the limit is 1 poem, many of the events that I host is a 1 poem limit. This does not mean bring a 20-page poem. This does not mean read 3 short poems. This means read 1 poem and keep it at a length that's sensible, preferably below 2 pages of letter side, right down to half a page. If you're up there and you make an error, let's say you make an error right near the beginning, you say the wrong word, laugh and say, that was a mistake, I'm going to start again. That's absolutely fine. If you're further through the poem, you make a mistake, you can either keep going or you can start the line or stanza again. Don't go so far before. Don't mess up the last line of the poem and then think, I need to do the whole thing again. That's akin to reading more than 1 poem. It's okay. We all make mistakes. We might be nervous. We might say the wrong thing. It's fine. You just improve on it for the next time. Also, when you're at the microphone talking, you do not need to demean your poem. You do not need to get up and say, this is my crappy little poem. I'm sorry. You don't need to listen. Imagine going and seeing a band you like, going up to the microphone and saying something like that. Here's our crappy little song. I don't think you're going to enjoy it very much. So, sorry for your ears. You're probably not going to be sold by what the band's going to do for you. And that could be a nervous tick, but there's no need to demean it. You're up there, you're doing it. It's up to the audience to make a judgment on the poem, if they're making a good one or not. It's up to them. You can't control that. All you can control is the performance you give. Once you finish reading the poem, if it's a venue that is pro applause, you can wait, allow the applause to happen, say thank you, and then you can go and take your seat. And again, be ready to listen to the people who come after you. Do not, this is an absolute faux pas. Do not finish your poem and then leave thinking, well, everyone got the best thing that they could have had, so I'm done. Drop the mic, out I get. It is very disrespectful to do that. You want people to listen to you. You also need to listen to others. That builds community and trust, and people are going to want to hear more from you when you give them your ear. So make sure that you're involved in that exchange. Now that the event has finished, you're there, you sat through the whole thing, you've enjoyed all the poems. The next thing that you can do is go and speak to people. You can talk to people about what you liked about their poem. You can ask someone else a question. Being involved in that side of the performance is great because that builds community again. It brings people together. It lets people know that you appreciated them too, and you are more likely to hear that back about yours because you've been more invitational. Now, I'm someone that can be quite shy, so sometimes I stand somewhere more favorably that someone might come talk to me when I might not initiate conversation. So that is something I am also learning to get better at. From this video, you should now have learned more about how to better perform your poetry that will help entrance and engage the people listening to you. Here on this channel, we make weekly videos about poetry, poems, and poets. So if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to this channel for more poetry videos. But I want to know, what do you think? What do you believe makes a great poetry performance? And how do you prepare before you take your poem to read in front of an audience? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're in the Los Angeles area and you want to come to some open mics and other events in Malibu, I have a mailing list you can subscribe to. It's in the comments. It's at www.nathanhassall.com/sign up. So come join us. There are hundreds of other poets and poetry enthusiasts, and it's an ever increasing community. So you'd be more than welcome to come. Thank you so much for watching. I cannot wait to share more videos with you and just delight in the art that is poetry here on my YouTube channel. So thank you for being here. Have a great day or night. Have a great life. I really want to spit on. Okay, well, a few pains, but we did it. Physical and mental. And if you want to watch a video on how to improve your poems, then I'm going to put a card over here. What should I say? So you can click right here. Rock on, poets. Bye.